The black box prison. The darkness was endless. It pressed against her eyes, against her skin, against her thoughts. The alien girl sat curled in the corner of the small black box, her knees pulled close to her chest. She had lost count of time, maybe days, maybe weeks, maybe more. In the box, there was no sun, no moon, no stars. Only silence and the faint sound of her own breath. At first, she screamed. She hit the metal walls with her fists until they bled. Her voice broke, raw and weak, yet the box gave no reply. It was made of cold metal, smooth and unbreakable. Every shout died inside, like the world outside had already forgotten her. Her captors had left her there. She remembered their voices before the door closed, mocking her, calling her weak, a burden. She was not a warrior, not a leader, only a mistake they wanted to erase. So they sealed her away, on a dead planet where no one lived. No one cared. The air was thin. Every breath hurt her lungs. Her stomach twisted with hunger, her lips cracked with thirst. But worse than all this was the silence. It was not the silence of peace, but of a grave. The kind of silence that eats at the mind, that whispers you're truly alone. She tried to remember the stars she once saw, the cities of her people, the sound of music, the warmth of light. But the memories faded, replaced by the endless black. Her voice grew smaller each day. Still, sometimes she whispered, "Help me," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, someone help me." It was foolish, she thought. There was no one to hear. No ships passed this world. No signals left this cursed ground. Her people had abandoned her. The universe was deaf. She pressed her ear against the metal. Nothing. Only the sound of her heartbeat echoing inside her skull. Sometimes she thought she heard things. A crack, a hum, a whisper that was not hers. But maybe it was only madness. Loneliness turning sound into lies. One night, or maybe it was day, she no longer knew. She dreamed. She dreamed of light seeping into the box. A hand reaching in, warm, human-shaped. But when she opened her eyes, there was only darkness again. Her tears dried before they could fall. The black walls took them too. Her body grew weak. Her voice almost gone. Still she spoke. "If anyone hears me," she whispered into the emptiness, "I am still alive." It was a prayer more than a message. A hope to something greater. Because if no one came, the black box would be her grave. The planet outside was dead. She knew. She had seen it before they pushed her inside. Broken towers, shattered machines, skies heavy with dust. A world abandoned long ago. No animals, no rivers, no air fit to breathe. Nothing could live here. Nothing should. And yet she was here, buried in silence. Her people had sealed her fate. But fate, she thought, must be cruel to leave her like this. Was she meant to die alone, unseen, unheard? Or was there still something waiting beyond the walls? Her fingers traced the rough edges of the box. She pressed her cheek against it, listening, and then, for the first time, she thought she heard something new. A faint crackle, so soft it could have been her mind. Static, a sound that did not belong to the silence. Her heart stopped, then raced. She pressed harder, straining to hear. "Hello." A voice flickered, broken, almost gone. Her eyes widened, tears finally spilling from her. Someone somewhere had heard. She tried to answer, her throat raw, her lips shaking. "Yes," she whispered. "I am here, please." The static faded. Silence returned. Her chest collapsed with despair. Maybe it was only her mind. Maybe it was nothing. But no, she told herself. It was real. It had to be, because for the first time in forever, the silence had broken. And in that crack, she felt a spark of hope. Small, fragile, but alive. Her captors had left her to die. Her people had forgotten her. But the universe had not. Not yet. She closed her eyes. Her hands clasped together, trembling. "If you are out there," she whispered again, her voice like dust, "don't leave me alone." And somewhere, far away, the static stirred again, as if the universe was beginning to listen. The silent world. The silence of the planet was not like any silence she had ever known. It was not the calm of night, nor the peace of a quiet forest. It was heavy, crushing, endless, like the air itself had died. The alien girl lay inside the black box, her breath shallow, her body weak. She could almost feel the emptiness of the world outside pressing against the walls. This planet was a grave, and she was buried alive inside it. Her memory came back in fragments. The last moments before her prison closed. She remembered the eyes of her captors, cold and merciless. They did not argue. They did not hesitate. To them, she was useless, a mistake, a shame for their people. She had asked them why, her voice breaking, but no answer came. Only the sound of the metal door sealing her fate. Now she tried to remember the surface of this world. Before they shoved her into darkness, she had seen it. A sky covered in brown dust. No stars visible, no light breaking through. The ground cracked and lifeless, ruins scattered like bones. Tall towers once filled with power, now broken into ash. It had been a living world once. She could feel it, but now it was dead, and she was the last living thing on it. Her thoughts drifted to her people. She had been one of them. Once, they had built ships that could cross galaxies. They had fought wars, claimed worlds, shaped stars. But in the end, they had turned on their own. On her. She wondered if anyone had ever missed her, if anyone had spoken her name again, or had she already been erased, as if she had never lived. The silence told her the truth. She was forgotten. Her voice, her cries, her whispers, none of them mattered. No one was left to care. And yet, she could not stop. Her throat burned, but still she whispered. "Please," she said into the dark, "don't let me die here." It was madness to speak, but madness was already her only companion. In the silence, she began to hear things. A hum, a crackle, a vibration in the walls. Sometimes it sounded like footsteps outside, sometimes like voices far away. But when she pressed her ear close, there was nothing. Only her own heartbeat echoing back. She laughed once, a broken laugh. "Am I losing myself already?" she whispered. Her laugh turned to sobs, and the box drank them whole. But then she remembered the sound. That one flicker of static. That broken voice that had slipped into the silence. She could not forget it, even if it had been only for a moment. Even if she had imagined it. It had been enough to change her. Because for the first time since she had been sealed away, she had felt hope. Tiny, fragile, but alive. And once hope enters, silence can never be the same again. She pressed her palms to the walls. "If you are real," she whispered. "If you're out there, please find me." Her body trembled with weakness, but her voice carried a new strength. The silence did not answer, but she did not stop. Every day, she tried again. Every night, she spoke into the black, repeating her message over and over, hoping the silence would break again. Outside the box, the world remained empty. The winds howled across broken ruins, carrying dust and ash. The machines of the old cities stood silent, their lights long dead. No birds flew, no rivers flowed, no life stirred. It was a planet abandoned by time itself. But above it, hidden beyond the clouds of dust, ships still traveled. And one of those ships carried a human. He was far away, scanning the dead world for signals. Not for people, but for salvage. Yet across the vast silence, her tiny whisper reached him. Faint, broken, but alive. She did not know it yet. She lay still in the black box, her eyes closed, her voice fading into whispers. But somewhere out there, someone had heard. Her call had slipped through the silence, and the silence, at last, had begun to answer. A human voice, far above the dead planet, beyond its choking clouds of dust, a small human ship drifted through space. It was not a warship, not a great vessel of power, but a lonely explorer, its metal hull scarred from old journeys. Inside sat a man, a human wanderer, his eyes fixed on the glowing screens before him. He was scanning for signals, searching for fragments of lost technology, scraps of metal, anything that could tell the story of the ruined world below. He did not expect life, not here, not on this forgotten planet that even star maps had abandoned. The ship hummed as his scanners reached across the wasteland. Static filled the speakers, broken patterns of sound. The man leaned forward, adjusting the controls, his brow furrowing. For a moment, he thought it was only interference, just the noise of storms in the dust. But then, he froze. Through the static, through the chaos of sound, a whisper came. Weak, trembling, almost broken. "I am here," the voice said. "Please, someone help me." His heart stopped, then hammered in his chest. It was not a machine, not a ghost of an old signal. It was a voice, alive, desperate, pleading. He replayed it again and again, the same faint words. Each time it shook him more. Someone was alive down there. Someone had survived in the silence of the dead world. The man stood, pacing the narrow deck of his ship. He had heard many things in his journeys. Machine echoes, lost broadcasts, strange whispers of dead civilizations. But this was different. This was not history, this was now. And now he had a choice. He could turn away, tell himself it was nothing, save his own life from the dangers of the world below. Or he could answer. He leaned over the console, his fingers moving quickly. He tuned the signal, trying to push his own voice through the storms. "This is human vessel," he said, his voice steady but his hands shaking. "If you can hear me, I hear you." He waited, breath held, eyes fixed on the speaker. For a long moment, there was nothing, only static. Then, faintly, broken, but real, a whisper returned. "Yes," the voice said, "I hear you." The man's throat tightened. He closed his eyes, letting the weight of those words sink into him. Someone was alive, trapped, fighting against silence. And he was the only one who had heard. "I'm coming for you," he said, his voice low, steady, carrying a promise. "You are not alone." His ship descended through the dust, the atmosphere shaking around him. The world below came into view. Ruins of towers, broken machines, endless deserts of ash. It looked like a graveyard of giants, a place where even ghosts would be afraid to linger. Yet somewhere beneath it all, someone waited, someone who had called out to the stars. And he had answered. The scanners guided him closer. The signal was faint but steady now. It led him to a barren plain where the wind howled and the ground cracked like broken glass. There, half buried in the dirt and dust, the readings showed something. Metal, strange, not human-made. He landed his ship nearby, the engines stirring the ash into wild spirals. The silence of the planet greeted him, heavy and endless. But beneath it, he thought he heard something else, a whisper like a heartbeat trapped under the ground. He stepped onto the surface, his boots sinking into the dust. The air was thin, poisonous, his helmet feeding him clean breath. Still, the weight of the world pressed on him. Every step echoed like he was walking in a tomb. He reached the spot where the scanner pointed. There it was, part of a black surface, smooth and unnatural, buried under layers of rock and ash. A box, sealed, silent, waiting. He knelt down, brushing the dirt away. His gloved hands touched the surface, and for the briefest moment he thought he felt it. A vibration, faint like a hand pressing back from inside. His heart pounded. He leaned close, whispering as if afraid to break the moment. "Can you hear me?" he said softly. "I found you." Inside the box, the alien girl stirred. Her eyes snapped open, her body trembling. She had heard. She had truly heard. Not a dream, not madness, not silence turning cruel, but a voice, real, strong, human. And for the first time, she let herself believe. She was not alone anymore. Breaking the seal, the human knelt beside the black surface, his gloved hands brushing away layers of dust. The box was not large, but its presence felt heavy, ancient, unnatural. Its surface reflected no light, as if it swallowed it whole. He ran his fingers along the smooth metal and found no seams, no handles, nothing that showed a way in. It was a prison built to last forever. He pressed his ear close to the cold surface. For a moment he heard nothing, only the sound of his own breath inside his helmet. Then, so faint he thought he imagined it, he heard a whisper, "Help me." His chest tightened, his breath caught. The voice was real, not an echo, not a trick. Someone alive was inside. "I'm here," he whispered, his voice low but steady. "I found you. I won't leave you." His words could not pass through the metal, but somehow he hoped she would feel them. He stood and unpacked his tools. The black box was not like anything he had broken into before. His plasma cutter sparked against the surface, but left no scar. His drill screamed, but the bits slipped away. Even explosives shook the ground, yet left the walls untouched. He cursed under his breath, sweat running down his forehead inside the helmet. The planet was empty but dangerous. Storms could rise at any time. The air was poisoned, his oxygen limited. He had risked everything to land here, and now the prison refused him. But he did not stop. Hour after hour, he worked, each failure making his resolve harder. Inside, the girl listened, her heart pounding with every sound that reached her. She heard the clang of tools, the rumble of force, the sharp hum of machines. Each sound was proof that she was not forgotten. Someone was fighting for her. Her fingers traced the walls of her prison. For so long she had thought no one would ever come. Now she pressed her hands to the metal, whispering with what little strength she had left. "Please, don't give up." She did not know if he could hear, but she spoke anyway. Her voice, her breath, her will. Everything was given to that single hope. The human paused, his tools scattered around him. He stared at the black surface, breathing hard. There had to be a way. No prison was perfect. He closed his eyes and thought. If the box was built to keep things in, maybe it also had a weakness to let something out. He searched again, running his hands over every inch of the strange metal. At last he found it. A faint line, almost invisible, a seam, hidden, buried under dust and time. His pulse raced. This was it. He placed his cutter against the seam and tried again. This time, the sparks caught. The flame burned deeper. The black metal screamed, as if alive, shaking under his hands. Inside, the girl gasped as the walls trembled. Light, thin, sharp, and blinding, cut through the darkness. For the first time in what felt like forever, she saw something that was not black. The human pressed harder, his muscles straining, his teeth clenched. The seam widened, the box groaned. A crack opened, and cold air rushed out, carrying with it the stale breath of years. He reached in, his hands shaking, pulling the panels apart with all his strength. The walls split open, and inside she appeared. She was small, fragile, her skin pale and glowing faintly in the dark. Her eyes wide and filled with fear, her body trembling. She looked more spirit than flesh, more dream than life. The human froze, breathless. For all his travels, for all the stars he had seen, he had never seen anyone like her. Her luminous eyes met his through the crack. For a heartbeat, time stopped. Two worlds, two lives, two strangers, suddenly bound by the silence that had finally broken. She recoiled at first, her body pressing against the far wall. Her heart screamed in fear. This was not one of her people. This was something else. A human. She had heard of them. Old myths whispered among her kind. Stories of dangerous wanderers, ruthless survivors, beings who never stopped fighting. And now one stood before her, reaching out a hand. But he did not strike, he did not threaten. Instead, he lowered his tools and spoke gently. "You're safe now," he said, his voice soft but unshakable. Her lips trembled, her breath shallow. Safe. The word felt like light in her ears. No one had ever spoken it to her, not like this. Her eyes filled with tears, her body shaking between fear and hope. The human extended his hand into the box, palm open, empty, waiting. He did not push, he did not force. He only waited, and inside the broken prison, the girl hesitated. For so long she had prayed, whispered, begged to be heard. Now someone stood before her, offering a hand. Her body was weak, her trust shattered. But something deep inside told her this was the moment. If she refused, the silence would return. If she reached, the silence would finally end. Her trembling fingers lifted, inch by inch, and, at last, she placed her hand in his. Fear and trust. The human's hand was warm even through the cold air that spilled from the broken prison. The alien girl's fingers trembled as they touched his palm, fragile, almost weightless. Her eyes darted from his face to the crack of light behind him, then back to his strange features. He was unlike anything she had ever seen. His skin, his shape, the way he moved, different from her kind, yet alive, steady, real. And for the first time since her imprisonment, she was not alone. But fear pressed hard against her chest. Her people had whispered about humans long ago, stories told around fires, warnings spoken in hushed voices. They called humans dangerous, reckless, untamed, beings who would survive anything, no matter the cost. And if one had found her, what did it mean? Was he savior or executioner? The man saw her hesitation, the way her body tensed, the fear in her wide, glowing eyes. Slowly, he lowered his other hand, showing it empty, no weapon, no threat. His voice was calm, gentle, carrying no command, only promise. "You're safe now," he said again, his words soft but firm. Something in the tone pierced through her fear. Safe, a word she had never believed could belong to her. She wanted to believe him, yet doubt still clung to her. Her people had abandoned her, locked her away, left her to die in silence. Why should this stranger, this human, be any different? Her throat tightened, but her voice, weak and broken, escaped. "Why?" she whispered, her eyes shining with suspicion and tears. "Why would you help me?" The man's jaw tightened, but he did not look away. He had traveled many dead worlds, scavenged countless ruins. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. But in all his journeys, never had a voice reached him like hers. "Because no one should die alone," he said quietly. His eyes held hers, steady and unflinching. "Not while I'm here." Her heart ached at the words. She searched his face for lies, for cruelty, but found none. Only exhaustion, determination, and something else. A kind of strength that was not cruel but unyielding. She realized, then, that he was not like her people. He had no reason to care for her. Yet he had come anyway. The girl's body shook as she tried to stand, her legs weak from long confinement. Her knees buckled, but the man caught her gently. She flinched at his touch, fear flashing in her eyes. But his grip was steady, careful, not rough, not demanding. He placed a small container of water in her trembling hands. "Drink," he said softly. "You need it." She stared at the clear liquid, her lips cracked, her throat burning. For a moment, she wondered if it was poison, if this was another trap. But her body could not resist. She lifted it to her mouth, the water spilling down her chin as she drank. Tears rolled down her face at the taste. It was life itself. When the last drop was gone, she clutched the container to her chest like a treasure. The man watched her silently, his heart tightening. She looked fragile, a ghost of what she must have been before her imprisonment. Yet even in weakness, there was something in her eyes, a light that refused to die. He knew then that saving her was not only duty, it was destiny. Her fear softened, only a little. She looked at him, her lips trembling as if words were hard to form. You came when no one else did," she whispered. Her voice carried disbelief, awe, and the faintest trace of trust. He nodded once, not needing more words. "I heard you," he said simply, "and I answered." She lowered her head, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. For so long she had thought the universe was deaf to her cries. Now she realized it had listened through him. The silence had been broken not by her people, not by her kind, but by a stranger, a human. Her body swayed, exhausted, and he steadied her again. This time she did not pull away. Her fear was still there, deep and heavy. But alongside it grew something else, a seed of trust, fragile, uncertain, but alive. And in the ruins of her despair, that seed was more powerful than any prison. As the human prepared to carry her from the black box, the planet's wind howled louder. The sky above churned with storm clouds, and the ground trembled faintly. The world itself seemed to resist her freedom. But the man's grip tightened, his eyes fierce. "You're not going back in," he said, more to himself than to her. She closed her eyes, leaning weakly against him. For the first time in forever, she allowed herself to believe. Maybe she was safe. Maybe she was free. And maybe, just maybe, she could trust again. The chase. The black box lay shattered behind them, half buried in the dirt and ash of the dead world. The human held the alien girl close as he carried her toward his ship. Her body was light in his arms, fragile as if a single gust of wind could break her. Every step sank into the cracked ground. Every breath echoed in his helmet. Above, the sky boiled with storm clouds, lightning flashing faintly in the dust. The planet was waking, and it did not want to let her go. She clung weakly to him, her glowing eyes staring at the endless ruins stretching across the wasteland. It felt unreal. After so long in darkness, the open sky, even broken and filled with dust, seemed too vast, too heavy. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "They will come." The human glanced down. Oh. Her fingers tightened against his suit. "The ones who locked me away, they never wanted me to be found." As if her words were a signal, his ship's sensors blared a warning. The human cursed under his breath, shifting her weight in his arms as he quickened his pace. He looked up and saw it, dark shapes cutting through the storm above. Ships, small but fast, their engines glowing with power. They descended like vultures drawn to the living. Her captors had returned. The girl's heart sank, fear flooding her veins. She knew those ships, the design, the sound of their engines. Her own people, the very ones who had sealed her fate. "They will kill us both," she whispered. "They cannot let me live." The human's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing. "Not while I'm here," he said, his voice like steel. He reached the ramp of his ship and carried her inside, the door sealing just as blasts of energy scorched the ground around them. The ship shook under the first wave of fire, alarms blaring. He strapped her into a seat, her hands trembling as she clutched the harness. "Hold on," he told her, as his hands flew across the controls. The engines roared. The ship lifted into the storm. Outside, the enemy vessels closed in, their weapons lighting the sky. The human ship darted between broken towers and collapsed bridges, weaving through the ruins of a civilization long gone. Energy blasts struck the ground, sending shockwaves of dust into the air. The girl cried out, her body pressing against the harness. But even through her fear, she watched him. The way he moved, steady, unshaken, focused only on protecting her. The pursuers grew closer, their weapons hammering against his shields. The human gritted his teeth, his ship groaning under the strain. "Come on, hold together," he muttered, slamming a control and sending the vessel diving into a canyon of broken stone. The walls rose high on either side, shadows swallowing them as fire rained from above. For a moment, the enemy ships lost sight of them, but the reprieve was short. 3 sharp streaks of light followed them down, weaving through the canyon like hunters chasing prey. The girl's breath came fast, her eyes wide. She had lived her whole life fearing silence, fearing abandonment. Now she feared the opposite, being found. The men and women in those ships were her own kind, yet they wanted her gone. And the human, a stranger, was the only shield she had. She whispered a prayer in her tongue, words meant for the stars. But she spoke them for him, hoping he would hear. The canyon narrowed, jagged rocks threatening to tear the ship apart. The human pulled hard on the controls, the vessel twisting, scraping against stone but holding. The enemy fire flashed behind them, missing by inches. "Almost there," he muttered, his eyes darting over the screens. Ahead, the canyon split into two paths. He chose the darker one, plunging the ship into shadows. The scanners screamed, unstable ground, collapsing tunnels, but he pushed forward. Rocks tumbled around them. Dust filled the air. One enemy ship struck the wall and exploded in fire, the blast shaking the canyon. The girl gasped, covering her ears as the shockwave hit. Two ships remained, their engines burning like predators refusing to let go. The human ship broke free of the canyon at last, bursting into the storm-filled sky. Lightning split the heavens, rain of ash pouring down. The enemy vessels followed, firing relentlessly. The girl looked at him, her voice breaking. They will not stop. They will chase us until the end. He glanced at her, his eyes fierce, his jaw set. Then we end it first, he said. His fingers danced across the controls, the ship spinning into a wild dive, engines screaming. The storm swallowed them whole, thunder roaring like the anger of gods. And in the chaos, for the first time, the girl did not feel like prey. She felt like someone was fighting for her, someone who would not let her be taken again. The answer call. The storm raged around them, lightning tearing through the skies, thunder shaking the air like the roar of some ancient beast. The human ship dived and rolled through the chaos, its shields flashing with every near strike, its engines screaming as if pushed beyond their limit. Behind them, the enemy vessels closed in, relentless, unyielding. The alien girl gripped her harness with trembling hands, her glowing eyes locked on the man at the controls. Every movement he made was sharp, precise, fearless. She had never seen anyone fight like this. Not with cruelty, not with anger, but with a determination that burned brighter than the storm itself. They will not give up, she whispered, fear thick in her voice. They will follow until we are nothing. The human's jaw clenched, his eyes never leaving the storm ahead. Then we give him nothing to follow, he said, his voice calm but hard as iron. The ship shuddered as a blast grazed their side, sparks flying across the cabin. The girl cried out, but he steadied the vessel with both hands, refusing to yield. His eyes flicked over the controls, his mind racing. There was one chance, dangerous, almost suicidal, but it was the only way. He slammed a lever forward, the engines roaring louder. The ship shot upward, straight into the heart of the storm. The enemy followed, their weapons flashing like claws in the dark. But the storm grew wilder the higher they climbed, lightning striking in blinding arcs, winds tearing like knives. The girl's chest tightened, fear mixing with awe. The man was not running anymore. He was leading them, pulling them into the storm's fury. One enemy ship was struck by lightning, its engines exploding in fire before vanishing into the clouds. Another lost control in the winds, spinning helplessly before slamming into the ground far below. Only one remained, stubborn, deadly, chasing them with everything it had. The human's ship groaned, alarm screaming, the controls shaking in his hands. The girl reached out weakly, her fingers brushing his arm. "You'll die," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You're risking everything for me." He glanced at her, and in that moment the storm's fury seemed to pause. His eyes were steady, unshaken. "No one answered you," he said softly, "so I did." The girl's heart broke, not from fear but from something new, something fierce. For so long she had believed she was nothing, forgotten, abandoned. Now this human, a stranger, had risked his life when even her own people would not. Tears streamed down her face. But for the first time, they were not only of despair. They were of hope, a belief. The last enemy ship closed in, firing wildly through the storm. The human pulled the vessel into a steep climb, the lightning all around them. Then with one final movement, he cut the engines. The ship dropped, free-falling through the storm like a stone. The enemy ship overshot, unable to slow in time. It was struck by a bolt of lightning so fierce the sky itself seemed to split. The vessel exploded into fire, swallowed by the storm's endless mouth. The human reignited the engines, the ship shuddering but holding. They burst through the clouds at last, the silence of space opening before them. The storm was behind them, the enemies gone. The girl gasped, her chest rising and falling. They were alive. The human leaned back in his seat, sweat dripping from his brow, his breath heavy but steady. He looked at her, his eyes soft now, no longer hard with battle. "It's over," he said. She shook her head slowly, tears still glowing on her cheeks. "No," she whispered. "It's not over. It's the beginning." Her hands trembled as she reached toward him, not in fear, but in gratitude. "You heard me when no one else did," she said, her voice filled with awe. "You answered when the universe was silent." He nodded once, a small smile breaking through the exhaustion. "That's what humans do," he said quietly. "We answer." For a long moment, they sat in silence, not the crushing silence of the black box, not the empty silence of the dead world, but a new silence, one filled with meaning, with connection, the kind of silence that said two lives had been changed forever. As the ship drifted away from the ruined planet, the girl looked out the window, watching the storm fade into the distance. Her prison was gone, her captors defeated, and though fear still lingered, though the future was uncertain, she was no longer alone. Her call had been answered, not by her people, not by the stars, but by a human. And in that answer, she found something stronger than survival. She found trust, she found hope, she found life again.